time, Martin Odegaard. Zinchenko from Ketia, it's in, it's 4. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.
Hello and welcome to not another Arsenal podcast, aka the Carl Jenkinson of Arsenal podcast. My name is Mike Hers, your host, and today we are going to attempt to bring some reasoning to the madness that is the transfer window. We're going to ask a few questions, a few departures being slightly announced. We're going to see if media outlets is kind of ruining this summer for us as far as the reporting goes around. And we're going to talk about some of our targets and if it's all just smoke and mirrors from the wonderful Andrea Berta. First and foremost, as always, the introductions. Chris, welcome back, sir.
What's going on, boys? Yeah, it's good to be back. I wasn't sure we were going to pod this week, but Mikey reached out last minute and said, boys, can we please do a pod? He was desperate to talk about no news at all. This is Mike Hers. This is his commitment to you all. Yeah. It's his commitment to talk about absolutely nothing. And Kelly and I were happy to oblige. So here we are. We're going to talk about absolutely nothing.
Always.
Yeah, literally absolutely nothing. Yeah, no, honestly, I was surprised too. I was just going to just bounce it around, being miserable with the transfer window. And I'm like, you know what? I want to be miserable with other people. I want other people to listen to me be miserable. And if my co-hosts are too happy about things, I'm going to need to knock them down a few notches. So I threw out the invitation and you guys foolishly agreed. So here we are. Kelly, how's everything going, dude?
Well, buddy, I was in the sun a lot, so usually I'm the whitest person on this podcast, but I think I have Chris nipped now.
Good. All down to
if he was still on, I'd be in a solid second, all of Arsenal, second in a 4-horse race, which would be pretty solid for me. No, the weather's beautiful in Minnesota. We get to say that between June 15th. And about August 31st. So I'm in that good pocket right now. I have some new rum that I just bought. And I'm ready to talk about absolutely nothing with two good buddies. So what's better than that?
Boys, there's not absolutely nothing. There is some movement. You guys are all fancy. You already know me. Traditional lagers for me.
Well, Pacifico is delicious. So don't ever apologize for Pacifico.
Especially in the summer.
Yeah, anything you pronounce with the Spanish accent, I'm there.
That's Pacifico, Mike.
Pacifico.
Yes.
That's the white. I think you just turned it like 3 shades whiter there, Mike.
Oh, Pacifico. Yeah.
That's a perfect segue. Speaking of Spanish speaking, Carlos Cuesta.
Look at that.
There you go. Boom. First
professional right here, guys.
Boom. First bit of news for the day. So while we don't have too much movement regarding actual players, we do have some backroom staff moving around. Now, AirPod Albert has been, spoken about a few times, potentially going to Netherlands to manage. He ended up choosing to stick around. A year or so ago, the entire backroom staff agreed a 3-year contract to stick around. So everybody thought that this was going to be the team long term. But out of nowhere, Carlos Cuesta allegedly has agreed to move to Serie A to manage Parma. Now, kind of a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting anything as far as moving in the back room, but he seems to be very loved by everything that you could read. Seems to be really loved and respected by the All or Nothing documentary that a lot of us saw. Maybe potentially that was the first glimpse of him that we saw, Chris. But out of nowhere, we kind of know this is football. This is what happens. Arteta is kind of a school of Pep Guardiola when he's as far as, hey, if somebody wants to leave to better themselves as a professional, I highly, and I mean highly doubt Arsenal are going to step in his way. I think they're going to facilitate this move. But what does this mean, man? I mean, a lot of conversation. Do Santi Cazorla finally comes our way? An older head, another young, youthful manager. How do you think this playing out, and do you think it's going to heavily affect anything Arsenal got going on moving forward for this season?
Well, first, I think it's, in a way, it's a good sign because it means that we're doing something right, and Arteta is grooming the next, great generation of coaches, and obviously Carlos Cuesta was quite an attractive proposition for Italian clubs. So from that standpoint, I think it's a compliment paid to Arteta. Now, does it come at a great time? We will see. I think, this offseason is a bit tumultuous in that we'll talk about this a little bit later. I don't think that we are moving quite as fast as I think many of us would hope for on the transfer front. We've had, a step backwards in the league. We did take a step forward in the Champions League. But it remains to be seen whether or not a key departure among the staff is in the end, actually a blessing in disguise, or it's a curse. And I think I don't think we know that much about Carlos Cuesta. I think how we did kind of find out about him was from the Amazon documentary. And I think what we took away from that, and I don't know if this is accurate to what his day-to-day role looked like, but he seemed to be really good with the players. He was kind of roughly their age. I think he's in his late 20s. He tended to address more the psychological aspect of the game, I think, in terms of what we saw in that documentary. And he was well liked and well respected. Who knows if he was any good tactically, how he supported Arteta, if he challenged Arteta in terms of decision making or with new ideas, or if he was more of a kind of a man manager in that way with the players. So I don't know. From the standpoint of a curse, it could be that he was a trusted lieutenant, that Arteta struggles to find somebody to replace him that he trusts as much as he does Carlos Cuesta, and that maybe there's a loss there on the player side. On the front, on the plus side, perhaps it forces Arteta to reevaluate his staff in a way that he wasn't prepared to do. But maybe what it means is that he brings in someone that has a bit more experience, maybe someone who's won a thing or two, someone who just brings a different perspective that might be able to unlock something that maybe we wouldn't have been able to unlock without that particular staff member. So yeah, I think we have to wait and see about who gets hired and who Arteta chooses. I think this will ultimately be Arteta's choice because it is, a member of the coaching staff, and I think it'll tell us a lot about where we're at, where Arteta's at, and what he kind of prizes in terms of who's around him and what kind of voice he needs with him and in the dressing room. So that's sort of my perspective on it. Mike, you did say something real quick about Santi or maybe a former player. Well, I think that's the romantic perspective. And I think that's probably one that like a lot of fans would love to see. I don't know that it does all that much for us in terms of getting us over the line. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a beloved figure on the sidelines, but it doesn't feel like Santi Cazorla is going to retire anytime soon. I know he's 40. He's playing it for Oviedo, who is in the second division of La Liga, and I think they're in the playoffs or something now to try to get promoted to La Liga.
Right? They're in the final. They lost 1-0 in the first leg, and they play the second leg in the second on Saturday. This upcoming Saturday. One thing that I feel like such a prick because I feel like I'm kind of underestimated. Oh no, they are in the second division. So is this to go into La Liga or
yes, correct?
I thought for a split second I thought I was reading that wrong, and I thought that they were in the third going to the second. I will say to just piggyback what you were saying, Chris. There's a lot of he loves the club is doing that statement is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. To your point, so it's romanticizing, and as a fan, it's easy to fall in love with that idea or another ex-player. But as you said, maybe experience-wise, maybe not as beneficial on the sporting level.
Yeah, Gunnar Blog made a good point on the Arscast where he said, I don't see his mentality, his meaning Santi's mentality, kind of fitting in with the kind of the ethos of Arteta, where it's very serious most of the time. It's very intense. I don't get the sense that is Santi's character. And if you guys remember when Santi was here, he was kind of the guy with the smile on his face all the time. You never saw him in a bad mood. He loved to joke around. A lot of the skits he did behind the scenes for Arsenal.com were of him joking and laughing. And I don't think that would be looked down upon necessarily by Arteta, but I just don't get the sense that that's the kind of vibe that Arteta has, in his coaching staff. I think you look at the coaching staff and most of them are quite serious they will celebrate when we score a goal when we do something well, but they seem like pretty serious individuals. And again, maybe that's something that we need to bring into the group. Maybe we need to be less serious, but as of now, it doesn't feel like Santi would be in line with who we have currently from a kind of mentality or personality standpoint.
I hate the idea, by the way, that you said that. I completely lost track of what I was saying. Completely lost track. I was doing something else, looking up a player's name, and just completely left, dude. So I'm sure I'll circle back to it. But first and foremost, I was Google searching some things whilst you were speaking. And I Google searched because I started getting curious. I'm like, wait a minute, does he speak Italian? Turns out he was in Italy for 2 years as an assistant coach for Juve between 18 and 2000. So there's a little bit of information that I did not know. Spuddy J in the live chat says, Santi still playing makes me feel ashamed of all my excuses for not working out anymore. Hey, Spuddy J, you say anymore, and I say at all. So props to you.
Phil Costa said on a podcast I was listening to today that he actually emailed Juve and said, I want to just come on and do whatever I can. I'll put the cones out. I'll do all the grunt work. I'll carry the bags. I just want to be a part of the backroom staff. And apparently he made an impression there. And that's how Arteta heard about him and found him and brought him to Arsenal. So the guy's a go-getter. And, he started at the very bottom and has made his way up to the top really quickly as a, 29-year-old now.
Yeah. He's 11 years younger than Santi Cazorla. So that's wild when you're
crazy
coaching top division.
That is crazy.
Yeah. I think it was pretty clear. Like, there's sometimes when you have elite talent, like in playing staff and coaching, that like this guy was meant for the, and if not meant for the top in like this guy is clearly ready type of thing. He obviously could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. He's like that type of personality, and he very clearly has a way to tap into the psyche and positively impact existing players and existing talent in a way that's meaningful. And here's a couple things when you're coming up for a kind of a yo-yo club who's had some big history but poor recent form. He's going to be cheap. If it doesn't work out, it's not a big deal. You're just going to go back down and bounce back up. And if he hits, you could really be in a good position. And from an Italy perspective, usually what that does, if he does very well at Parma for 2 to 3 years, keeps them in the division, maybe pushes them to Europe, then you're in a spot where Juve comes and pays you a bunch of money to have him be the coach. And so it can be a good financial move and a good sporting move for them. But I joked with just to make sure that I can bring the mood down in this lighthearted podcast.
we started way too positive for Kelly.
Don't worry. When Arteta resigns in disgust in 2028 for not having a striker yet, Cuesta will come back. So if you missed him, you're not going to miss him for long because Arteta is going to resign in disgust in 18 months when he doesn't get a striker.
No, it's going to be worse. It's going to be Cesc Fabregas, and I'm going to be just absolutely just disgusting. Just cheerleading that man on. Why everybody?
Josh has already sent that text. That is already there. All that communication has already happened. If something happens with Arteta in the next 2 years, Cesc will come here. That's not it. We will not go outside. He's already did his interview 2 summers ago with Arscast. It's already all the club mojo is having him piping him right in there. So don't worry about that.
Josh is either unaware that the fans are upset with Cesc, or he's unaware of Cesc Fabregas' existence entirely. So one of the two.
My mind's in the latter.
He's like, oh, the guy from Chelsea.
Oh no,
that guy.
He's good.
Do we know him?
He'd say the same thing about Giroud or Aubameyang. Oh, those guys from Chelsea.
Yeah, the Chelsea guys.
I do just piggyback on what Arsblog said in their podcast. We're referring to the assistant manager. I do like the idea of an older head. I don't know if he would fit in. Sometimes I feel like because of the staff being so young, you throw somebody that's 10, 15 years the other way and way older, and then you're just kind of like, is he going to be able to relate to the players in any way, shape, or form? But
we still don't know what happened to Steve Round. I mean, he obviously left, and we don't exactly know the reasons why, or at least I haven't seen it being reported. But he was the old head that Arteta brought in on his coaching staff when he arrived. And I doubt it was due to age, but maybe there was something related to his age that we were not aware of. So I think it's going to be a really interesting hire. And it'll, again, as I said before, I think it'll teach us a lot about what Arteta needs and prizes in a assistant.
Is there already somebody in the building that would take? I suppose we don't get a lot of information about the coaching staff or like how that elevates. So it'd be interesting to see if somebody come from the cat. People have suggested that Wilshere might come back. It does seem that Wilshere wants to do the path where he's going to go down the leagues and try to find a head coaching job, which is the way to do it, really. Because for Jack, it's all kind of free hit there. I mean, he's like 32 or 33 or something like that. So he's got plenty of time, and he's got tons of money from being at Arsenal to be able to be a big splash hire, maybe League Two or something like that. And I know that he was the interim manager at Norwich towards the end of last season too, which is, pretty good. Tends to be a top 6 to 8 championship club and is kind of flirting with promotion year on year. So you'd think that kind of league, maybe lower level League One or kind of good quality club with League Two with League One ambitions would probably be a good landing spot for Jack. But you never know. I mean, he spent time throughout the academy and everything too, and has a relationship with basically everybody, including Arteta, a personal relationship from playing with them, and Arteta being his captain. So I agree. It's going to be it's going to be a fun and interesting move to see. Maybe Ancelotti. He was just going to dump Brazil, and he's going to come and be an assistant for Arteta. We'll see.
Smoke cigarettes and sit in the pilot chair. Exactly.
No, that's Mauricio Sarri, and he went back to Lazio with the cigs.
When everybody's panicking the 90th minute, everybody just looks over and he just raises his eyebrow and calls it a day. And boom, goal. Sergio Ramos pops up in the 89th minute of a Champions League, ties the game. The rest is history.
You're describing like a very pleasant dream that I would have. Is that Ancelotti's the assistant? He perks the eyebrow, and there's 42-year-old Sergio Ramos coming on to get the Declan Rice corner and not him. He's doing a short-term loan from Monterrey. Why not?
I'm here for that. It's Buddy J. Oh, dude, he's ready for it. He says, "And just free, mate."
Well played.
I absolutely love that idea, man. I mean, look, we're gonna go moving into the next little bit of information we want to talk. But I mean, I was gonna ask Kelly, but seeing that he walked away from the camera, Chris, I'm going to you again. No, Kelly's back. I was gonna say, look, he's not close to retiring, but I'm like Thomas Partey. We're gonna talk about his departure. There was reports coming out saying that he has potentially decided to leave the club. I know his future was up in the air. Everybody assumed that he was going to take the Jorginho role because things were looking positive and saying, okay, we're going to give him reduced minutes. We were talking about the future, how many minutes he was going to play versus Merino. And here we are with breaking news and reports suggesting that he's on his way out. So I think this is a massive blow that is going to throw the transfer market into even more of a frenzy, because I don't think this is a massive expenditure that they were expecting to have, because even at his old age and his slow motion, he still plays at a really high quality level. Mm-hmm. And forking over some wages versus having to purchase somebody for 20, 30, 40, depending on the role that you're giving him. You're going from wise old veteran to potential, as I joked around, Samuel Lakonga-ish type of vibe, like, hey, here's a punt for a 15 million player and hopefully he works out. But I genuinely think that's a massive hit to our floor regarding midfield and regarding our bench. So what do you think? Do you think that we actually stay proactive and hit another like high level midfielder here, Kelly? Or do you think we're gonna seep into I want to say mediocrity, but I kind of feel like that's a shit way of saying it because we don't know who they're going to bring in. But you know what I mean? Are we looking at a prospect to fill that road? We're looking at Sami Lakonga staying, or potentially kind of pushing the boat out, if you will, and maybe purchasing another high level, even if it's a veteran, but a high level seasoned player that might be able to take that role.
I think that if Partey goes, even Arsenal, who famously enjoy living dangerously and being a player short at every position, I think that we'd probably be forced. And Dean has popped in too, which is the right thing to say. I mean, there's a lot of wages leaving that position, right? So if Partey does go, he's a 200K plus wage. I'm sure Jorginho, I don't know what wage he was on, but I would assume would be on a 150 plus wage. So it does alleviate some of the day-to-day on that position. So, I mean, the hot name has been the Lucien Agume. So reason why is, he's 23. He's a high performer at a below average club that is in a bunch of financial peril, I guess. Elliot made a good point on his transfer ramble show today that if you can, maybe part of the deal is you let Lakanga stay there. He spent time there. You let him stay there for a cut rate price. And in exchange, you get Agume and they get some money in, and they still have in theory, La Liga level central midfielder that's roughly the same age that can go and kind of step into a similar kind of 6'8" position. I mean, Agume seems like one of those like guys that pops up, which is the value pick du jour from a foreign league that we've seen. The kid who plays defensive midfielder for Aston Villa was one of those. I think from France, and he was a free. Every year there seems to be
Kamara.
one. Yeah, Kamara. Rarely does Arsenal actually take the budget options, but I mean, Berta has priors for taking players at about this age from different leagues and making them work. There's a lot of guys in Atletico Madrid. He has, Ronaldo is one that's, again, it's a silly name, but he's somebody who's cost like 6 million, who's gotten from Lille. Like there's a lot of, he personally has a lot of history for making smart value picks, and it looks like we were the club that was able to jump on the low release clause on Kepa, which is obviously a market opportunity. I would love this to be filled by a market opportunity, whether it be a veteran on a free who can give minutes there, who's going to be a trusted, reliable player, whether it's like an Agume, who's somebody who probably should be worth more than 20 million, but is available for less because of financial peril, and he can go and sit in there in that position and be a medium-term prospect. I don't care what we do, but if we truly lose those two players, what I really don't want is that we just do Zubimendi and then platoon it and make do with what we have. Mike, you talked about this last year when Christian and I were trying to convince you that Ethan Wanyeri was going to be an Odegaard backup, and that's something that we should actually consider. I think at some point, if you want to play 70 games a season, 70 matches a season, you have to have professional players in positions that if one of your starters gets injured, your season doesn't go to shit. You don't have Mikel Merino playing 6 different positions in Champions League knockout games. So whatever the solution is, if Partey does go, I do kind of suspect that there's some gamesmanship happening here between Partey's agent, who somehow wants a pay raise despite the fact that he's getting older, which seems insane to me. And Arsenal just saying, like, you can do a 2+1 and keep your same wage, so we don't have to pay a transfer fee, or you can fuck off. Like whatever the solution is, I want it to either I want the worst case scenario to be extending Partey for 2 years, and that's personal baggage. We've done that to death, right? Like this is not considering his personal baggage. This is talking about a guy who's on the downside of his career, who has league experience, who has recently played very well for Arsenal. If the downside is him for 2 years, and if he stinks and can't stay fit, we just let him go after next year, then I want that to be the worst case scenario. And so whatever that means as far as investment, I mean, they're not going to buy another starter because Zubimendi's going to be the starter. So I would think that it would be somebody on a market opportunity, somebody on a free, or that kind of medium-term punt, 20 to 30 million, like kind of like what Lakanga was, what name the player, the sub 30 million player for a top 8 to 10 league team in the world for ambition and money. 20 million is a punt. So one of those guys.
May I offer you a player that has played, and I know where you guys are going to think I'm going to with this. May I offer you a player that has played in Italy and Marseille?
No.
It's not Guendouzi.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Guendouzi.
I know. Benacer, guys, come on, man. Pay attention. No, he's actually over there.
That's like the first time you've ever mentioned that dude's name in your life, Mike. Come on.
Benacer's an 8, though, isn't he? Or is he a 6?
He is more of an 8, yeah. But
I was going to say.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to insert Guendouzi.
I definitely thought you were going to say Adrian Rabiot, and it's like, oh, no. Like, isn't his mom awful? Isn't that why he's moving around everywhere? His mom is his, like, momager and has destroyed his career.
I'm gonna at her old age, she's slowing down. I'm gonna
pretend like you just said Angelo Stiller, Mike.
Yeah, please, yes.
That's the market opportunity that
he's going to Bayern Munich. Let it go. They all do. All of those guys.
Are you seeing links? I'm not seeing any links yet.
It's understood. This is
Well,
implied.
It's understood. I heard they have a concrete admiration on him, and they've been monitoring the situation.
I'm honestly a bit surprised that Real Madrid haven't gone for him, because I feel like that's a big hole in their squad. Is that
Paris won't buy him, dude. He's not pretty enough. I'm telling you.
No, he's not.
He
I agree with you.
History of doing that.
I agree with you. I don't. Real Madrid is too much of a Hollywood club to go for an ugly dude. I get it. I was just going to say about Agume. I don't pretend to know much about him. I've watched a few comps. I saw the AVP did like a scouting video on them, which I watched part of. What's interesting about him is that he's aesthetically kind of awkward to watch. Like, he reminds me of Ibrahim Senghor, who I really liked coming out of Belgium. Was it that Nottingham Forest actually ended up buying? Mm-hmm. Because, he's long-legged, he's rangy, he looks awkward, but he's really effective when he's playing at his level. I don't think Senghor has done a great job of acclimating to the Premier League, but this guy kind of reminds me of him in his style. But I feel like, as I was looking at his stats, and I just did a quick FBref lookup, the number 2 player he rates most similarly to in the world is Moises Caicedo. And if he's like a Moises Caicedo light, give me all of that for 20 million. I will take that in a heartbeat. So yeah, I agree with you, Kelly. I would love a market opportunity pick here. We don't do enough of that as a club, because it feels like anytime we get a transfer wrong, it's like we have to hold on to them forever until we have to let them go for free, and it plugs up every other kind of transfer business we ever want to do. But for 20 million, that cannot be a reason why if that move fails, we cannot just replace that and go again. Chelsea buys 10 of those in a window, and if it doesn't work out, they loan the guy out. They give him to Strasbourg. I know we don't have that kind of
but like literally Chelsea buys like 1 or 2 SARs per window at this price point, and then just like loan armies them out, and like literally guys named SAR, like they like 6 of them. It's unbelievable. Like, I agree with you. Here's my thought: if KSC don't want to play ball, and Mike and I were joking about like elite things, and Mike was like we calling Zubamendi an elite level transfer? It's like, well, that is fair point, because other teams are going to spend twice as much on players that are ostensibly and individual players that are ostensibly our competition. But like, cap is a market opportunity. If you got to overpay him a little bit in wages, whatever, like that's another one too. You can get this guy and you can get him on board and be like, look, you're going to be the only positional backup, and we just went to the Champions League semifinal. You've been schlepping it off a loan for like 4 years off of the injury, who had no intention of playing you at all. They're a dumpster fire, and so you're not going to even bounce back to injury or anything. Like, where are you going to go? Do you want to go and play in Europe, and do you want to be in this position where you're going to start 10 to 15 matches, or be the primary starter if something happens to Zubamendi? You think that's going to be, whether he's a perfect style fit or not? Like, what the fuck? Like, what else are you going to do? You can't just go and just reposition your existing talent to cover all these holes. At some point you have to go too deep with professional footballers in every position, at least. In most positions, you got to go 3. It can't be, we can trust Calafiori to step in there in an emergency. Like, we saw that last year. The reason why our depth chart sucked balls is that we had all these players who were at the backup in multiple positions. Like, they
kept getting injured. Yes.
I gotta say, we're finally going to see Declan at 6, and Miles Lewis-Skelly is going to be moved up to the left 8 at the rate that we're recording.
No, thank you.
I was kind of Google searching on Sambi and Agueme, and I can't believe Sambi's actually older than him. And I have this perspective on Sambi of being like such a child, because when he arrived to the Arsenal in 2021, he was like, the next great thing. He was a prospect. He was a youth project. And then I just Google searched it as you guys are discussing, just kind of wondering like how many games he played for Sevilla, stuff like that. And I noticed he was 23. And I'm like, and literally this is what I thought. He's like only a year older than Sambi is what I thought. Turns out it's the other way around. Sammy's 2 years older than him.
Sammy's going to be 26 here in October. So like,
yikes.
Yeah, I mean,
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he only played, and he's been under contract with Arsenal for this will be his 4th season under contract with Arsenal. He's played 25 in like, you'll recall, we were doing this podcast. I could not believe how terrible he is. Fucking awful for the Premier League because he does not track back. Like the only thing that guy is any good at is just like sitting in like midway up the pitch and like distributing, which will fly in other leagues, but not the Premier League. Like that's wild to me. I guess I haven't watched him in Sevilla. Maybe people like I'm a glutton for punishment, but I won't watch lower table league, I guess. So
I'll give you one guess as to who Sammy Lokonga most statistically is comparative to.
Guendouzi.
No, but
No.
Guendouzi's number 4 on the list.
Okay,
He played for Leicester City last year. Former
Chelsea?
Spurs player.
Oh,
first
fucking Oliver Skip.
Harry Winks, same guy.
Whatever. Those those NBC white guys for Spurs that were supposed to be the next big thing that you can't tell them apart.
But like the fact that like
Love
that is like the similar comp to you based on stats, it's not a good look, buddy. Not a good look at all.
Sign him up.
No,
God,
do not sign him up. Mike.
Please don't sign him up.
Please
I
don't.
beg.
Let him go. Let him go for free. I don't care.
Okay, so we're gonna try not to bleed in too much. We got two things that are very similar, but I want to try to do our best and keep them apart, Chris. And I want to specifically talk about the perspective of Arsenal moving, quote, slow in the transfer market. We're going to try to shelf how Berta works a little bit later, right? That's the next topic. So if you can, Chris, just bear with me and try not to like bleed into this too much.
I got you.
Okay. Just to add context, again, I'm just sitting here texting you guys if you want a podcast because I got all these things just brewing in my head, right? And initially, the one thing I said when the season was ending and I was really frustrated that we had knocked out of the Champions League, we were going to finish second or third, I just said, I don't care what we do, we just need to do the business. And I meant by business, I meant a potential winger. But mainly I was thinking a striker and a midfielder before preseason. Now, Arsenal's preseason doesn't start until July 23rd. I completely understand the frustration of seeing other teams do business. But if we kind of take a step back, the large majority of the business is Chelsea, who is not a real club, but is playing in the Chelsea, and Manchester City, both teams whom are playing in the Club World Cup. And, City kind of needed the players because they had existing injuries and they need to get the boat rolling. And there's a bunch of, maybe a transfer ban, who knows, but they had a reason to accelerate on these things. Same as Chelsea. They had a reason to accelerate their deals. We saw it with a lot of clubs in the Club World Cup. Real Madrid paid money for Trent just so that they could have him a few weeks early so he could participate in this. We saw the Saudi League team, that I can't remember, that Cristiano Ronaldo plays with, if I'm not mistaken, trying to purchase Osimhen. And matter of fact, like I think Arsblog mentioned it this past podcast in which they're still trying to complete it, and they're saying, hey, if they can complete it, he might be able to play the knockout stages for him. So the majority of the movements that we've seen, bar Liverpool, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not watching the Club World Cup, full disclosure, so Liverpool's not in it, right? I'm not crazy.
It's just Chelsea and City.
So other than Liverpool, and I a point for us moving slow here. I'm really frustrated that Liverpool has made more advances, having finished first and been champion, than we are. But in the grand total of everything, watching that the majority of the clubs, the two majority of clubs that done the majority of the business, should I say, is Chelsea and Manchester City, whom are playing this Club World Cup. Are we kind of just frustrated because of how the season ended? And are we allowing what I believe now, more and more reports that I read, just media over reporting? Do you think it's just kind of getting to us as supporters? Combination between that and how the season ended, and the combination of watching Chelsea and Manchester City buy half a team each, we're just sat here just absolutely losing our shit. So are we being impatient, Chris? Or do we completely have the right to be losing our shit? I'm gonna dare say I'm gonna use the term this early in the transfer window.
I think both those things can be true. We can be impatient and we can also be losing our shit for good reason. I think there is a history with this club, and I think it has been exacerbated under this ownership, that we tend to always perpetually be at least one player short of glory.
Mhm.
And I think that is the backdrop upon which we project all of our insecurities, anxieties, and fears about whether or not this project is going to actually produce something major, or if it's going to always be also rans. And I know we've talked about being an also ran in past pods, but I think that is in the psyche of the Arsenal fan, is that we have a history with this ownership where, you know, after we finished second to Leicester in their historic season, we bought Petr Cech. And that was all we bought when we knew that there were massive holes in the squad. And what happened? We didn't do what we needed to do. Last summer, Mike, you were, of the three of us, the one that was most upset about the transfer window because we didn't address key areas of need in the attack. And what happened? We sold a couple players in our attack. We had cluster injuries in our attack, and our attack did not allow us, our injuries in our attack did not allow us to sustain a title run. I think it's the PTSD of transfer windows past that haunts every Arsenal fan who's been a fan for, you know, more than a season, who has sat here through a summer and said, we know exactly what we need to do. In this case, this summer, Arteta has said, you know, all of the pressure is on the board to make things happen in the transfer window. We brought in a new sporting director who knows how to get stuff done at clubs that are very comparable to ours, and has shown that he can get stuff done and get things over the line in an effort to get that club a title, which he did twice. And then seeing, and I think you're right, Mike, that a lot of it is also exacerbated by the fact that we've got rivals. You can debate whether or not we think Chelsea is a threat to us this next year, if they're still a ways behind us. But certainly Man City, especially, seeing them do really good deals. They've bought 4 players for a total of 130 million euros, which is about, I don't know, 110 million pounds, give or take, for 4 players. Tijani Reinders, Aït-Nouri from Wolves, Ryan Cherky from Lyon, and then some guy named Marcus Bettinelli from Chelsea, who I don't pretend to know who he is. And they seem to have a very clear strategy in the transfer window for guys that are quite progressive. There was a chart that I shared in a back channel that was showing mapping players' progressive dribbles on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis it was passing. And Odegaard flashed really well in that chart, but also Reinders and Cherky in that same kind of area of that graph as being world-class progressors of the ball. And so it tells me that they've got a world-class forward in Haaland, and they're bringing in world-class athletes in their fullback positions. I think they're moving away from that kind of 4 center backs at the back, and they're moving to more kind of traditional fullbacks to bomb up and down the wings. So Aït-Nouri is one of those. And I think what they're trying to do is bring more dynamism and thrust and penetration through the thirds, such that they're just going to blitz teams with high energy, with technicality, with progressive passing and dribbling. And you see that in their transfer window. And I think you see such a clear strategy play out with a team that has all the financial resources available to them. And you say to yourself, they're not going to have a season like last year. Again, they're going to be title challengers. You know, Liverpool are making statements. It seems like it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to get in Verts. They've revolutionized once again their fullback position. We'll see how good they are. But Kirkaz and the gentleman from Bayer Leverkusen, can't remember his name anymore.
Frimpong.
Yeah, Frimpong.
Who are quite attacking. And you think Liverpool could could do some damage again this year with Salah staying and Virgil van Dijk staying. And all of a sudden you've got another massive 3-horse race. And when you see Liverpool and City doing what they're doing, and you see us having done nothing, we haven't brought Kepa over the line yet. I mean, it's been reported for 2 weeks, and he's not. It was a release clause, $5 million release clause. Where is he? Mendy supposedly isn't here because of an accounting wish by Real Sociedad. If you believe certain reports, we haven't even made a bid for a striker yet. All that stuff suggests to me, or at least one of the suggestions can be that we are trying to cheap out on, we're trying to get the best deal possible. Of course they should, but if it means that we're getting like our C target, that doesn't fill anybody with confidence that what we're doing in the market is going to get us over the finish line when you see what our closest rivals are doing.
Yeah, I think there's a danger in club. I mean, we're deeply engaged in the club, like specifically. I think that there's a danger when we're kind of in it, that we're looking at ourselves and being like, oh, well, no matter what happens, we are improving specifically, right? That's the justification. Like, we're getting better. So obviously it's going to be better. And we kind of don't turn our attention to what other clubs are doing. And not just like Chelsea, who's the like shotgun approach and just like making up reasons to go and piss money away on a bunch of talent and like making managers try to figure it out, which is like not been a great strategy for them. But like City know what they're doing, and they have one of the best managers ever. I mean, he's a checkbook manager, but he's always had a giant checkbook, and so you know what I mean. Like, it's not that big of a deal when you've played for the most spendy, or when you coach for the spendiest clubs in the history of the world. So it's fucking fine. Like, who cares? If that's how he can succeed, he's succeeding because he's choosing jobs where people give him a fucking mint to spend. So whatever. Like, Liverpool winning a title out of rhythm with a new manager, retaining all of their major players besides Trent, and then signing the best available talent in the world for an astronomical amount of money, that says something. And again, like, people have posited a bunch of theories about how FSG is doing this. It might just be something where FSG is like, we like winning stuff. We've been financially frugal, so we're going to push this window and get the next 3 to 5 years set, because we've just proved that we can buy basically nobody, provided we feel like we're set and our talent is set. But you have to get to the point where you're set. And I think, again, the Arsenal theory of my biggest frustration with KSE is not that they don't spend enough money, is that they seem to, well, two things, which I've said a million times. I really think that it's Mike, you and I have talked about this specifically, it's a top 4 project, and the rest of it is like bonus. It'd be nice if we would win, but really the point is to finish in the top 4 and be in the Champions League knockouts. That's the project. So I think we will spend and extend to get there, but past that, it's really hard to get them to do more because they feel like the goal is already relatively kind of accomplished, and they kind of want to go on an NFL, NBA, American sports style run in the playoffs, where the goal is to get home field advantage, so finish in the top 4 in your conference in the playoffs and get on a run and put it together at the right time. And that's not what exists. Like, football is a true measure of your quality over the course of an entire season, with a ton of variables in there. And the only way to do that reasonably is to, really looking league to league with a precious few outliers, it's having one of the most expensive and deep squads with the most talent over an extended period of time. That's how you win stuff. And so if you're not willing to do that, you're basically not willing to give yourself a reasonable chance to win. You're just trying to do chip, share, and chance, which can happen, but it doesn't happen very often. And it hasn't happened for us in 2+ decades because we haven't. First was the austerity period, and then the Usmanov period, and now this period where we do just enough to get there. And I think it's pretty obvious that the club deliberately, in exchange for relatively small amounts of money, is very okay with gambling that everything is going to go perfectly well. And you're playing poker against teams that will spend shitloads of money, or their card counters like Liverpool, right? Who are the smartest people at the table. And then other people who will spend shitloads of money to get a 6th card in their hand all the time. And over time, you're going to lose more hands and you're going to win doing that. And this is playing out cynically exactly how I thought it was going to. And maybe they're going to pull Rodrigo out of their ass, and maybe they're going to sign Sesko, and they're going to sign Nagume, and they're going to spend the $250 million, and they're going to say, you know what, we were just biding our time and playing our hand, and want to get the best possible. This is always the plan, to do the big push for the next 2 to 3 seasons. They're not, though. Like, really, here's what's going to happen. They're going to address the striker situation as inexpensively as possible, because they've spent a lot of money on Zubimendi. They've had to spend over the release clause in Zubimendi to get the payments spread out, which, again, a player that you've been courting for 2 years, you know the release clause, and you're still to put less money down and finance more over time, you're willing to do that when we have all sorts of money to spend. Like, they're fucking around with the only two strikers that are viable things besides Ollie Watkins. And again, all of the team specific and all the friendly sources are all of a sudden starting to do Ollie Watkins stuff. It's because the club are saying that this is a real possibility. It's in our back pocket. So all this stuff is happening because what they want to do is they want to go and have Zubimendi be the big outlay, and the rest of the shit that happens be value, market opportunity, cheap as possible, just getting by. And when you operate like that, can we get away with not doing it? You leave yourself short, because we always do it. It's what we've done for the last, since Wenger was here. He got top 4 while leaving himself painfully short. It's what we do. Arsenal will go and trade massive negative impacts on the ceiling if the floor seems relatively fine. They're fine with watching Ben White on a fucking bum knee and Urian Timber needing ankle surgery and running him out there every goddamn day because it was cheaper than loaning. It was worth ruining Urian Timber's career, or putting his career at risk, rather than paying a £4 million loan fee on somebody else. That's how they operate. That's how we operate. So unless we get really lucky, it's just not going to change. This is what we do. This is who we are. We are rich. We pull up in a Bentley and we go to the fucking flea market and we try to go and negotiate, and we try to use spoiled food in our refrigerator to make dinner for our guests. That's what we do. That's what it is. It's who we are. And I think the sooner that we understand and respect the idea that the goal is to do just enough to hit the KPI, and all the rest of it is just dumb. We view it as just dumb luck and happenstance. The sooner that we can just kind of drown in the bathwater and be done with it.
Mike, you're on mute.
Mute, buddy.
Thank you. I hate that I agree with you. It's long been a fear, and I've seen how they operated, and I know that a lot of people could push back and say, here are charts saying that we spent more than, X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C. And I look at it like that was at the point in which we were out of Champions League, and the money that was spent was in order to place us within Champions League.
Correct.
And maximize profit. Now, anybody that wants to, they could look at us and say, you guys are complete, negative, cynical bastards. And amen. Fair enough to you guys if that's what you think they are. I'm going to say the history thus far of perpetually being one player short has gone on not only exclusively when Stan was still fighting Usmanov, but even when Stan took over. Now, look, luck is a funny word, and we could, sometimes I look at highlights of Gabriel Jesus when he was actually healthy, and I said he was a pretty decent player for us.
But he was still a £50 million player who wasn't wanted at City. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
and
yeah, no.
I'm sorry to cut in on you, but like,
saying.
It's frustrating because like it's Declan Rice was the elite market.
Yes.
Peak, right? And he did that because, okay, this guy's going to make sure we finish in the Champions League. And he did. But 100%. The reason why we haven't done that again is because it's not because we can't, it's because we don't want to, because it's expensive and risky, and we don't need any more midfielders and defenders. We need attackers. And they're carrying the spiritual scars of Pepe, like a fucking disease that stops them from doing it. It's like a facial scar when you're trying to pick up a gal at the bar. It's like, dude, just let it go. Like, nobody can see it. It's dark in there. Nobody gives a shit about your scar. Just go and talk to her. And that's how we treat recruiting attackers.
So
go ahead. Somebody, just real quick, somebody tweeted today, this window is giving me the vibes when we were in for Higuain and somebody else, and we ended up with Yaya Sanogo.
Yeah.
And I do worry, and it got a lot of traction on Twitter for good reason. And I think that just demonstrates the mentality of the Arsenal fan base, is that we've seen this time and time again. We get linked, we flirt, we monitor, we pay attention to, we advise, we use all the verbs that we consider. All the journalists have used. They've run out of words in the English language to describe what we've been doing. And we'll end up with, our pants around our ankles, flirting with the ugliest girl in the room. And it's
you guys are killing me today.
It's just, I'm sorry to be a Debbie Downer, but
and still finish with blue balls at the end of the night.
Fool me once, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like, I think a lot of fans feel that way. Like, I think that's why you hear and see so much cynicism, is that we've been down this road before and we've gotten our hopes up only to be let down time and time again. And we're back in that situation now where we know exactly what we need. And yet what we're seeing play out in the media, and who knows if it's true or not, is that, well, maybe we're going to go for the option number 3, which is a guy in the downslope of his career who may have one good year, and that's great and all, but most people doubt is going to be able to get us over the finish line. And that's the problem.
I think it's a pattern of how we do things. And really when it's a pattern like this, it kind of isn't my job and your job and Mike's job to like be cheerleaders. It's like, okay, if that's not how you operate, stop operating that way. Because people will go back and they try to call me up when I'm saying this and my messaging is this way. And it's like, what about Declan Rice? And all that's like, that was to maintain top. Like, have we done anything in the last 2 decades when we finished second 4 times in the last 8 seasons? Have we done anything the following year that would lead you to believe once we finished second that they were pushing the chips in and making it an earnest push for the top? And the answer is no. And 2 different, like KSE touched the other one too. And they just didn't do anything, because I think that's not the point, is not to win. And again, they don't let Stan near a microphone anymore, because like 6 years ago, he said that I wouldn't get into this if I was trying to win stuff. And we've had every club-fed podcaster under the sun try to rationalize and spin that into something where it's like, there's a limit. And again, I also get like hand-waved people too. It's like, well, you're being a spoiled brat or whatever. Like, there's a limit. It's like, it's all self-imposed. These people are fucking billionaires, and there's huge amounts of
you sound like me now.
But honestly, like, there's huge amount of space in like the financial regulations, and we see that we're competing against clubs that will simply walk through giant loopholes to try to win and try to increase their asset value, increase their club value, and that's fine. And if you want to operate above board, Mike, I agree with you, and even talking about this for a while, the acting above board is not a moral stance. It's a financially convenient stance. The reason that we do that and we try to tote ourselves as operating the right way is because it's cheaper and easier to do it that way. And like, if you want to know my philosophy and kind of what I think about KSE and our recruitment team generally, is that if you want to gamble on something happening, what's the least expensive and easiest thing to do? And that's what we do. Most of the time, we take the cheapest and easiest. And with strikers, paying Ollie Watkins $200,000 a week and paying $40 million for him isn't cheap in the grand scheme of things. But versus what any other club, with our prestige and accused ambitions and financial capacity, paying it for a 30-year-old striker and put him on $200,000 a week for 4 seasons is an incredibly cheap way out. Like, other clubs in our position would simply pick who you want to buy between Sesko and Gyökeres and already fucking paid the money, and they would have been here in January or last summer and now. But we won't do it because we are more than willing to trade the chance of having real accomplishment for saving some money. And we've always been like that, and we always will be like that. And it seems like the one outlier that we can do is once every couple of years, we'll spend a bunch of money on a position of need. And that's it. But that's where you're cut off. Now, the rest of it is you got to sell somebody, or you got to make do with what you got, plus what we can squeeze in there. And that's a really bizarre way for elite sport to do it. And it doesn't work in baseball because there's no salary cap. It doesn't work in football because there's no salary cap. It works really well if you can manipulate the salary cap, though. But their shit just doesn't work in the Premier League. It just doesn't. Sorry, like that doesn't. It hasn't. It won't.
So, okay. I'm going to speak, trying to be optimistic and trying to bring somewhat balance to this conversation, just for the sake of being balanced. I'm going to say, for the record, I do lean heavily towards where Kelly is mentally, but for the sake of conversation here, okay, this is assuming two things: A, Kroenke gives a shit about PR, and B, Kroenke values Mikel Arteta. Now, I think the PR thing, most billionaires don't operate like that, unless you're Todd Bowie, who is trying to buy love. He's like the football version of Elon Musk in life, kind of in a really weird way. Now, the Mikel Arteta thing is interesting. Now, this kind of is a pro and a con for some people, because we got BX Gunnar in the live chat, and obviously he's really frustrated with Mikel Arteta, and he has his reasons why. I'm also frustrated with him for many things, but I think at the very least, even if we're looking at it on a non-trophy level, if we're looking at about maximizing profits, just like you and I were discussing this, right, Kelly? It would be absolutely foolish to piss off the guy that got you to your max profit that you've been seeking for so long. I'm foolish enough, if you will, and I'm willing to be patient enough, because I do think that there's a lot of playing of the media in a way, and I think there's substantially way too much over reporting. I support Arsenal. I am, when I'm not on Twitter on my timeline looking at these tweets, they're sent to me via DM. So I have Arsenal news consistently in my face all the time. And I consistently have to read reports about interest in Sesko. 2 days later, Fabrizio Romano, concrete interest. 3 days later, they're still in conversation. So it completely overreported, and it could freak you the F out. All this to say, I genuinely think that after rejecting the possibility of signing Watkins and having the summer that they had last season, the January transfer window that they have, I am just at the point in which I don't believe KSE is willing to set his management staff on fire and refuse to get him Gyökeres or Sesko. I'm going to say I'm naive enough to believe that he's going to end up at Arsenal. And again, to bring balance to the conversation as far as if we are moving slow. Now, again, many people could hear this and say, you're being spoiled. You want everything fast. Transfers don't operate like that. My biggest issue with the Šeško thing is somebody needs to explain to me how, if we've been after this specific player for 1.5 to 2 years, just literally, as I like to say, fucking viciously dry humping him in public, trying to get him to play for the Arsenal. I genuinely have questions as to how the fuck this deal is not done. I genuinely don't know how this deal is not done. If you look, we talk about legwork FC and groundwork FC. Call me naive, and I know, like Tom Canton, like he always likes to point out, like, go look for Gunner Blogs, how transfers work video, and it's great, and it explains how things work. It's a great video, and it breaks down a lot for people that have a lot of questions. But in nowhere within that video, he says this shit takes 2 years to accomplish.
Yeah.
So as far as my frustration about being slow, I know I started off the show started off the segment partly saying we're not moving slow, in the sense that my only main goal is to have the transfer done before preseason.
Yeah.
And I'm contradicting myself right now, saying I'm getting pissed off at the club because of all the over reporting, but I'm just thinking, I do not understand how the fuck you see reports that say they're astonished about the price of the player, and I'm like, how the fuck are you astonished at the price of the player? Like, I know the price of milk at my grocery store for the last 2 years. I do not know the price of fucking Šeško it's so leads me into our next segment, if you will, moving from the flow process, is how Andrea Berta works. And I'm starting to strongly believe that this guy is legitimately leaking bullshit information at a high, at like an insane rate, to be
Like
completely honest.
machine gunning bullshit.
Just spinning bullshit. It's just the more that I read into the report saying we're after this player, but then you get contradicting reports and comments from the player's actual agent. Like, I don't know what the fuck you guys are reporting. That's never happened here. And it's just completely opposite, time and time again. I just find it astonishing in which they're linking us to players like Rodrigo, Rogers, Matoma, Kudus,
Everywhere.
Shesko, Jokovic. These are a lot of big name players, and like I'm starting to kind of think they're 100% working on stuff. Some players are probably reported accurately. I mean, like nobody, like if I create an ITK account and I said Arsenal are interested in Shesko, I'm not setting the fucking world on fire, right? I'm practically Han here, just just fucking agitating, just stating the fucking obvious. So I'm sitting back as much as I can, and I decided literally today, as I was sharing my frustration, as I was reading more things about. I think today I saw was like Arsenal froze interest on Gyökeres, and Arsenal was like astonished that Leipzig wants 80 million to 100 million, and I just read that and I just thought that has to be bullshit. That's literally like I go, it's so fucking insane. You know when something's so insane, you're like, that has to be bullshit.
Yes.
And that was my thing, right? And like I literally just on the other tab, I looked up like Arsenal news, and these are the type of headlines that you see, like the role Ozil played in failed transfer for Arsenal. Well, it's Sane, his old German teammate, fucking spoke to him and asked him how life was in Turkey. Okay, far from the suggestive headline, right? And you see all these type of things like Leipzig responds to Arsenal after an air quotes transfer agreement, and just because Leipzig posted a video of Shesko. It's all this media pouring around, grabbing attention, fucking headlines that I'm like, me personally, I'm going to try to step off of it a little bit and try to calm the fuck down. And this is my recommendation for anybody that's losing their fucking head. As much as I love the concrete interest jokes and the starting 11s that we're seeing, and as somebody said, like, I can't believe monitoring didn't make the starting 11, but we got monitoring on the bench, following a striker, left back is concrete interest and all this stuff, and like the memes and the banters are freaking awesome, but TikTok, motherfucker. I'm expecting. Believe it or not, I'm expecting Shesko. As absolutely fucking naive it is, I think that there's so much goddamn smoke that there's a wildfire in this forest. There's not a campfire. There's a wildfire. Like it's. I feel like it's too much to backtrack at this point. I know. I said a lot, Chris. I kind of went on a little bit of a rant. But I probably why I asked for this podcast. I had all this shit just spitting in my head. But would you guys like to comment as far as Berta? Do you believe that he's just playing the media, or do you think this is literally is it planned clusterfuck, or is it just a legitimate clusterfuck of a club transfer window right now? I guess that's my question for you, Chris.
I think it's a combination of how Berta works and how this club and the owners specifically allocate funds, or rather don't allocate funds. The reporting has always been that this ownership wants to be self-sustainable. When we are not in the top four, they realize they can't be self-sustainable because you don't get the Champions League money. And so they are willing to spend, which they did when we were not in the top four, until we got in the top four. And then we went back to a self-sustaining model. So when you've got a club that can't spend whatever it wants, like Chelsea or City, or a club that doesn't have the pedigree or the assets to sell really well, and therefore increase your income such that you can operate like a Liverpool, who also operates in a self-sustaining way, but somehow is really good at selling and therefore can spend more. I think you need a meticulous director of football, sporting director, whatever you want to call them, And it feels to me like Berta is that person. If you've been, try not to like get dissuaded by like all the BS in the media and what they're saying and what's real and what's not. I tend to believe that account on Twitter, Hand of Arsenal, knows what he's doing. He's called too much to not have some really legit links in the club. And he's talked a lot about over the last couple of months that Berta's kind of approach is that he does a lot of assessing early on in the transfer window, trying to figure out like, what are the financial terms of the player? What are the financial terms of the club? How open is the player to come? Is this player a good fit for the club positionally, tactically, psychologically? And what he does is he reaches out to a ton of contacts, a ton of players to assess, that kind of fit. I think at some point earlier in this window, he said that Berta very early on in the window had assessed or had begun contact with over 15 forwards, which I'm sure is now a lot more than that even. And I think you counteract that, or you put that up against what happened with Edu last summer, where we knew we needed a forward, and what happened? We ended up panic loaning Raheem Sterling on a deadline day deal. I think Berta's approach is such that he's not going to allow that to happen because he's got so many irons in the fire. And we'll see if he can get our plan A over the line or even plan B. But I don't think you're going to see us panic loaning somebody that's over the hill that isn't going to do a job like we saw in the last window. Now, that might still mean that we get an Ollie Watkins. It might still mean that we get someone we're not excited about, but it's not going to be a guy that I don't think will be able to contribute on some level like we saw this past year. So it feels to me like a guy, and I believe Berta used to be a banker or was in finance. Those guys are quite meticulous kinds of individuals. Their psychology tends to be, if you're a banker, that you pay attention to the little things. You like things to be just so. You like to be in control. You like to have the upper hand. It feels very much like that kind of approach is making its way into the way that he tends to manage transfer windows. And again, I think we're all impatient. We've already unpacked all the reasons why we are. But if it nets us, like our top targets within this self-sustaining model that our ownership is imposing on us, I don't think any of us will complain at the end of the day. But we haven't been through a window where Berta's in control. So I think we all have to sit here and just say, we hope he knows what he's doing. And I think he's got enough of a track record at Atletico Madrid to say, well, he's had some misses, he's had lots of hits as well. And let's just hope that he hits more than he misses here at Arsenal.
Yep, that's where I'm at. I think ultimately, too, we need to remember that we've had different sporting directors, and at least in the last several seasons, the board and the decision-making apparatus that, let's not forget, is actually stuffed full of lawyers who all have fingers in the pie, right? That's who's been consistent. And if we have a underwhelming window for basically since the Rice summer, so we're talking about, four windows, five, the fourth window in a row. We probably need to look higher than Berta, because it seems like he's out there doing stuff. It's not like Edu where he's got one eye on his next job. It's really from an Arsenal perspective, he finished third in second in 3 consecutive seasons. And you do a lot of gambling with how you're going to build your squad, and it doesn't pay off. And you're right at the cusp of doing something really big, and it's on you. It's on the club now. And again, if it's on the manager, I'm okay with that, especially if he's given better players and a deeper team to deal with. And if you can't win anything, then that's a problem. The sporting director, if he makes coaches that turn out to be really poor with a lot of resource, then that's on him. And if we end up just getting by and cheaping out on stuff, then it's on the board. And again, like I have my own reasons for thinking that our accomplishment or lack thereof is not a large concern, but I think this season, if nothing else, if we don't do the things that we want to do, we're in a point where we can probably, depending on how things are built this summer, we're able to very reasonably appropriate the blame. If we get to another season where big silverware is not won, I think after this summer and this January, we're going to know who to blame for that. And I'm not going to say it's going to change anything, but I think this is going to fill in this season will fill in the last 20% of the who are the good guys and who are the bad guys here. And if this group would have done something better, then we could have won more and we should have won more. Or if nothing happens, I think depending on how that doesn't happen, we'll know whether it's a management issue, a sporting director issue, or an ownership and executive board issue. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I was actually just commenting that to BX, where I think I'm at the point, me personally, is if we have one really good window, and I know this is one of those, and thank goodness we're a small podcast, right? Because the chances of me getting clipped saying this and sounding like a fucking yank are minimal. BX, don't do it. I kind of feel like Arteta's done enough he's earned the opportunity at one more roll of the dice with a really good window. And what I expressed to BX is, now if we have another average to shitty window, it's, in my opinion, to Chris's point, like he likes to point out, it's a failure from above. I think it's confirmation on what Kelly and I often say, as far as top four being the goal, qualifying for Champions League and going into group stages and knockout stages and collecting all the monies. And that's kind of where I'm at. One question I had for you, Kelly, but BX hasn't fully answered the question, but just for Chris and Kelly, just simple yes or no. We don't have to explore this like super deeply.
Okay.
But when you mentioned winning a major trophy, does FA Cup and League Cup do anything for you guys, or are you guys at the point with the project or the process? We haven't used that word for a while. In which, if it's not the league title or the Champions League, it's not sufficient for you guys. Like, how are you guys looking at that? Is an FA Cup this upcoming season a keep the man in charge type of thing for you, Kelly?
Chris is going to say it depends, so I'm going to steal that. It depends. Damn
it! I love it. Where's my mug?
I know, right?
If Nebby was here, he would say, "Very nice,
very nice." If we finish 7th in the league and win the FA Cup, no, it's bad. Then that's really bad. If you finish top 4 and you win the FA Cup, I'm good with that. I think the FA Cup is the distant third, but that's a trophy and that's a major trophy and it's one that we value. We have a lot of history in that competition. It's not going to be good enough, but I would consider the FA Cup a major trophy. The League Cup, I don't give a single fuck about. That's you do parades for the FA Cup when you haven't won anything in 60 years, or for the League Cup when you haven't won anything for 60 years, like Newcastle. And again, League Cup couldn't give a shit less about. FA Cup, yeah, I'm not satisfied, but yeah, that's a major trophy and that's a big win and that's important to the club. Not good enough, but it depends. Like Christian likes to say, it depends on how the rest of it goes. We bomb out in the Champions League group stages, we finish 7th, and win the FA Cup. Who fucking cares?
That's a great thing to add, because to your point, if we lose 22 games like Spurs did and win the FA Cup, nobody's gonna give. Like, if I'm gonna throw this out there, we lose 10 games this season, I think he might walk himself. I don't see a world in which we see that, but like the idea that somebody could bomb in the league that bad and win the Conference League and it's a good thing, or in this just adjusting it for the Arsenal perspective, I don't think the board, again, affecting the monies, the Champions League money, I think because that would feel that shit's gone bad, and but so I should, I guess, for you to answer the question, just to add a little bit more context, Chris. Yeah, let's say knockout stage Champions League, top 3 league, and FA Cup. Is that a good? Would you consider that a good season at this point?
See, I might be in the minority.
Depends.
I probably am, but a domestic cup isn't a cure-all for everything, nor is it a panacea.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, and this is why I'm not Arteta out, is last season, if you want Arteta out because of last season, you have every right to feel that way. But we've seen Klopp have seasons where he had as many injuries and he finished 5th.
Yeah.
And didn't win anything. We saw Pep Guardiola have as many injuries last season and struggled and had to spend 200 million in the January transfer window just to save his season. Still didn't win anything. But yet somehow Arteta is held to some standards, a different standard, and he's supposed to win something even though he had the same exact injury situation. If he faces the same exact injury situation next year, if he has cluster injuries in key areas where we've got to start playing, center backs as midfielders or midfielders as center backs or center backs as strikers or whatever the fuck's going to happen, I'm going to be really hesitant to want to call for the manager's head, because in those scenarios, sometimes stuff doesn't go your way. And that will be another case where it didn't go your way. Now, questions can be asked about maybe his training methods and those sorts of things. And I will have, but that's the problem with that, is that we'll just never know the answer to that. So
also, if we also do not help him in January with massive squad goals and cluster injuries, if the board chooses to keep their powder dry for the 800th window in a row,
we got all the powder.
We'll have all that powder in a big warehouse that's so dry in temperature and climate controlled.
Yep.
I think we're past the point of having a pattern. Like I think we have a pretty good sense of how the club operates. And here's the other thing that I want to say to everybody too. Like we are Atletico Madrid. So like we're not Barcelona, we're not Real Madrid, we are Atletico Madrid, and we will BX, I hate to tell you this, man, but unless he tanks for multiple seasons, he's here. And he's probably going to be like Simeone, where he's going to have a ton of influence. And he's going to be here for a really, really long time. And it's not going to be incumbent on him winning the league or the Champions League. And provided he stays in the top 4, the only way that Arteta is getting fired, here's the 2 ways that Arteta leaves. He's not supported. He's so disgusted by the lack of ambition. He just says, fuck you, and walks away and does something else.
And goes to City and wins everything.
Goes to City or goes to PSG or goes to wherever, right? Or goes and coaches the Spanish national team, something like that, right?
Barcelona, yeah.
Yeah, goes to Barcelona, something like that. Or he misses the Champions League places for 2 consecutive windows. I think that financial ramification is the bridge too far for KSC. That missing that KPI and the auxiliary financial situation that causes, that's enough. But if he finishes second for the next 5 years and doesn't win a major trophy, he will still be here should he want to be here. And that's just the reality of owners who are disinterested in a board who are a bunch of lawyers and accountants. That's it. It's an almost soulless and golden prison-ish attempt at sport, but there's no, that's just who we are, right? And so Atletico Madrid, thank God for them, Simeone won the league I think 3 seasons ago, and he finishes in the top 4, and he sometimes embarrasses himself in the champ, but he's not going anywhere. He never will. And it's funny to see the rankings of manager paid. It's like Simeone, Pep, and Arteta. And that's what you pay somebody who that's how you keep somebody happy as well, when you don't give them the resources to win, and there's a financial and career trade-off and stability and compensation that managers are willing to take, even very, very well thought of managers like Simeone and Arteta, that okay, if you don't pressure me for my job and you're going to pay me an assload of money, I guess I'll be okay. I can make 19 million a year and live in London. That's cool.
Yeah, I think, and I thought BX made a comment and says he believes that is a lot closer to the door at this point.
Only if he's walking himself.
To your point, Kelly, I think it's easier for him to walk away from the project than to get fired. And that just general feeling, that's not fact. That's just opinion. Like BX said, he's seen enough, and he feels that he already made the decision that he would like to see a change. And again, I'm open to all opinions, but on the manner in which we operate, and the stability that the Kroenkes have shown, not only in Arsenal with Arsene Wenger, but in other teams, in their bounce ball teams, stick ball team, ice team, all that stuff. There you go, Americans.
Thank you.
I think they have a history of keeping people around. They like stability. We are going to end it there, short and sweet. Next week, hopefully, Chris is doing some homework for us, and we're going to have a fun statement podcast, and we're going to see what we put on. Hopefully Tuesday night. That way, I'm not sleep deprived at work myself. That would be awesome. But if not, hey, super short notice, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I really do appreciate you guys. Just kind of like sporadically, I see like different backgrounds for both of you, so I know that you guys had to pull things together to be here with me tonight. I truly appreciate that. Live chat, you guys have been absolutely awesome. BX Gunner, again, like I said in the live chat, we disagree a lot, but you are here. You're being respectful in all of this, and dude, you're always welcome in the live chat 100% of the time. Spurdy here, Sankey joined. Avreo fell asleep again. Shame on you, Avreo. Other than that, thanks so much for joining us. You guys know where to find us on all the YouTubes and Spotifys and stuff. See y'all next time. Peace.
Right foot this time, Martin Odegaard.
Zinchenko from Ketia, it's in, it's four. Martinelli tiptoeing in. Predatory, perfect. There is a gorgeous arrogance about Arsenal now.
It really is. They are enjoying every second of this.